Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Trade the Chain. Thank you for joining us, and we are back after a week. A bunch of people on the show here doing a bunch of different things in a bunch of different places. So thanks for putting up with us being absent for a little while. And we do hope you caught the episode, which was last Tuesday. It was last Tuesday, right, Ryan? CJ? Okay,
I think so, yeah.
The days blend together. I hope you caught the episode last Tuesday with us and Simon Yu, CEO and founder of StormX. There was a little audio issue going on, but overall it was a great episode with a lot of positive commentary coming from Simon. But here we are, it's Monday, and we are getting set for a very interesting week. This Wednesday, we have Coinbase going public, and it is set to go public with a valuation estimated around $100 billion. That's a fantastic amount, guys. And so we'll see. It's a milestone in crypto, apparently. And then, some other things that I just saw as I was perusing the headlines. We got Jesse Powell, Kraken CEO. He is warning of government crackdowns on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. We all know that Janet Yellen, as well as Christine Lagarde from the central bank, has said some very harsh words about Bitcoin and its use for nefarious things. So we'll see what transpires with that. But first, we're going to go over to legal and the plugs. We may be out of practice after missing a week, but let us know how we do.
100 billion is a lot of fajul.
100 billion is a lot of money.
Content provided by Trade the Chain, including co-presenters from Market Rebellion, is strictly for informational and educational purposes only. Absolutely none of this is investment advice, and you should not listen to us at all, ever.
Correct.
Trade the Chain is brought to you by TradeTheChain.com, a global 24/7 community of traders of all ages and all backgrounds and all abilities, all using AI-driven sentiment indicators and actionable alerts to help them beat the market. If you are not yet a member of Trade the Chain and want to trade like a crypto insider, head over to TradeTheChain.com for a 14-day trial.
And moving over to marketrebellion.com/crypto, this is Monty and myself. And Market Rebellion in the community. And with us, you get exclusive trade ideas, our macro portfolio allocations, a pro charting platform, a crypto trading education curriculum, and an elite community of traders all throughout the world, and much more. If you're serious about trading crypto, this is the service that gives you everything you need all in one place. You can start your first month trial for just $1 at marketrebellion.com/crypto. That's trade ideas from Monty and myself with entries, exits, stop losses, and guidance through a lot of those trades. But before we go into the big boards, let's take a look at the Trade the Chain coin screener and see how the market's kind of rolling up. Wow, 17% for Binance coin. I'm sure we'll have a little bit more to say about that later in the episode, but everything's looking pretty bullish and bullish neutral here. Any thoughts, gents, as we start the show?
I would just say I'm excited to hear what Ryan has to lay out, because I know what he's going to talk about after the big boards, but that number 3 position.
Yeah, man. ETH is here in the footsteps.
CJ, what do we have? What do we have with the big boards today? What's Bitcoin and ETH up to? I know that we're above or around the 60K mark with Bitcoin. It's making some moves.
Yeah, this is going to be a historic week for Bitcoin in the cryptocurrency market, in my opinion, because of the Coinbase IPO. I don't think we've ever really had something quite like this. There's been some talk about certain traders potentially taking capital out of Bitcoin and sort of laying it aside so that they can trade the Coinbase IPO if they want. So the Coinbase IPO is cannibalizing Bitcoin and other crypto assets. I'm not really of that opinion. I think the IPO is going to be really great and just a good catalyst overall for volatility, volume, and overall increased interest in the cryptocurrency space. But breaking down the technicals here with Bitcoin, we are in that very nice ascending triangle pattern and are continuing to kind of get rejected at that top resistance level here. But I will go ahead and draw it real quickly for you guys and show you how that ascending triangle is created, you take these two higher lows and connect them to a point. And each time we hit that resistance level on top, it's becoming much, much weaker. And so now we've tested it about 2 or 3 times pretty solidly. And with this potential catalyst of the Coinbase IPO coming Wednesday and a lot of other renewed interest in the cryptocurrency space, I think it's definitely possible that that will be the catalyst that breaks us above this final resistance level to new highs. Another aspect of technical analysis with the ascending triangles, this is same for descending triangles as well. You know, they're just the mirror opposite. But if you take the leg up and the percent gain right here, and then you take this move and extrapolate it to the breakout points, you get a breakout target of roughly 75K to somewhat higher 70s. And that's kind of consistent with the kind of expiration price that we've seen on a lot of futures and Bitcoin options. So it's very interesting. It's probably where a lot of those individuals are kind of projecting price to go. But, you know, until we break one of these levels, as we come closer to the apex of this triangle, we kind of just got to sit on our hands and wait. I'm still very bullish because in general, these patterns will break to the upside 70% of the time when in the midst of an existing uptrend. So that's pretty promising from the daily perspective. Last thing I'll touch on with Bitcoin here on the weekly chart is that we have a new weekly candle today, but yesterday night, our final candle of the weekly chart closed. And as you can see, it's created now a new weekly high at the close. So that's pretty nice. Of course, we're not over that critical 62 level just yet, but man, we are knocking at the door and getting one step closer each test of resistance.
So a lot of people, we were talking before the show, and that ascending triangle does appear to be bullish. And a lot of people think that Coinbase, you know, is overvalued though, right? So you have stunads on Twitter talking about Coinbase going to 200 billion. Well, it's at 100 billion now. But the consensus here is that, at least that I've seen, is that it's more closely going to trade, or at least expected to trade, like Facebook, where it kind of maybe popped a little bit at issue, and then it just goes below par for the foreseeable future. And if it goes below par, what impact do you think that'll have on Bitcoin? Because to me, that seems like that wouldn't be much of a vote of confidence, and I can't imagine Bitcoin, you know, hitting those expiries if the IPO kind of flounders.
The famous Facebook IPO.
Don't get me started. I remember that day.
You make a great point, though. You really do, Ryan. And I do believe that there is a possibility that this is, in fact, a buy the rumor, sell the news event when it comes to the Coinbase IPO. A lot of investment banks like Goldman make the majority of their profits off, you know, the IPOs like that in that market. And typically, you know, it will decline after retail gets a hold of it. Somewhat similar to Uber and Lyft and in their IPOs. I don't think it's going to bring the entire market down as a whole, mainly because I think Bitcoin's still in a very strong posture. I think if you look at blockchain related stocks like Riot and Mara and others, you know, they're still looking relatively strong. It's just, we haven't seen this before. And it's hard to predict what will happen if the Coinbase IPO does just sell off as soon as the public has an opportunity to trade it. But I think it's just going to be neutral to bullish this week for Bitcoin. Then again, we'll see. But
if that's the case,
still bullish, and I'm not changing.
Sorry, CJ. If that's the case, why haven't we seen any movement upward just from MicroStrategy announcing that it's now paying its board of directors in Bitcoin? Right? That would seem to be a positive bullish move, because then other companies holding Bitcoin like Tesla, Square, what have you, if this is sustainable, then why wouldn't they also do that? And why wouldn't that be a long-term bullish, like, momentum driver?
I think the Coinbase IPO will be an overall large momentum driver. It's just difficult with the volume and volatility, like the first week the thing comes out. Because if you're right, if it is really overvalued and the market perceives it that way, and say we drop down to something like an $80 billion valuation, that's tough. Like, I don't know exactly what would happen, because it's difficult to gauge the Coinbase's effect on the overall market. And another thing to be said is, Bitcoin hasn't really ran up. We've obviously gone back and tested 60 and that resistance, but it's not as if we're creating new highs and are running up in anticipation for the IPO. So it's kind of weird, this price action we're getting right now.
Well, go ahead, Brian.
No, go ahead, Alex. I'll wait till after because I wanted to move on to something else. So, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that, one thing that's really interesting about the Coinbase IPO, I personally feel that the $100 billion value, I definitely feel the $200 billion valuation is a little over promising for this stock. But also, folks have to remember this is a direct listing, so it's not a traditional initial public offering. There weren't a bunch of book runners that were pre-selling this during a roadshow. So where you may have things like Facebook, which was heavily sold by the investment bankers that were underwriting the deal, and then when that issuance came public, there was a lot of unrestricted shares that pre-buyers had that sold off. Here we actually have, and I think it's more of an even playing field, and that's a very rare phrase to say on Wall Street, but I think as much as you can get to one, this is going to be that one. So I'm not predicting a sell-off on issuance day just because I feel it's the entry point that everybody's getting in. Okay. Another thing with direct listing, the company isn't creating new shares to sell. So I think there might be quote unquote the Coinbase effect to this direct listing, where we will have that sharp incline off the rip. Maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks go by, and then we have it retraction to where the public feels it's valued at, or people are cashing in off that Coinbase effect. My opinion. That's it.
No, thank you for clarifying that, because you're right. This is a direct listing. It's not necessarily an IPO for those reasons that you mentioned. So there might be a little less sell pressure when compared to IPOs like Facebook and some of those others.
So
go ahead, Ryan.
Quick poll among this highly esteemed roundtable. Who's getting in on this Coinbase IPO or initial direct offer?
I'll speculate. I'm going to speculate, with a very small position, just kind of because I want to.
Okay.
But we'll see.
I will be shockingly surprised. I mean, one, I haven't given it a thought of investing, so I'm not geared up ready to invest. I'm not even sure if there's a ring fence of participating brokers that you could buy this from, or if it's going to be open to all because it is a direct listing. I'm not quite sure. Is it coming out on Robinhood? Is the Robinhood crowd going to be able to invest in this? Because if that's the case, I don't know. Maybe there will be a pump.
Yeah, not to 200 billion though. That's absurd.
I just don't see it happening. I really don't. Go ahead.
I was gonna say maybe by the end of the year. That's not entirely impossible if Bitcoin makes a run. But no, we're not going to have 200 billion this week. And if we do, I'll eat my words. I don't know. We'll figure out something to embarrass me.
One of the interesting things, though, Ryan, that's going to come out of this is we will forever know the transparency of what Coinbase is doing. And that's going to be interesting for the market as a whole. I think for other counterparties in the space to this has always been a space, especially, let's call it the last 5 years. We've had all these, this surge of new exchanges and venues and stuff. Everybody's always guessing. We all work in the space. Everybody's always guessing what the other person's doing, their competitors and stuff. Now we have a truly pure exchange that's going public, and people are going to see those numbers and be like, okay, this is the roadmap that maybe we should follow or expect.
Also, one of the main reasons that a Bitcoin ETF hasn't been approved is because regulators don't trust the data, the pricing data, and the volume data coming from exchanges. If there's a standardization of market data, even if it's just from Coinbase, I mean, I could see potentially a Bitcoin ETF being approved sooner rather than later.
I hate those 3 letters, but
I'm in agreement with Ryan. I know I've said before that I think it would take much longer for kind of an ETF to be implemented. My mind is starting to change, though, as we get more regulated entities in the space, more transparency, like Ryan mentions, and as Bitcoin and crypto gets more accepted, There's silver and gold prices and ETFs and that sort that kind of gets, they have varying prices across exchanges and various brokerages, but they have, ETFs and are able to have exchange traded funds. And I think Bitcoin, if you take the aggregate price of maybe the top 10 most reliable exchanges or brokerages, you may be able to create some type of reliable custodial ETF. But we'll see.
Like an
No,
NBBO for Bitcoin in a way.
yeah, I think Ryan, I think you're absolutely right. CJ, on point. And not only that, the more transparent, or the more the government has the hand in regulation, like when you go public, that's about as close to the government as you're going to get, right? They have full access to you now. With that, maybe they get more comfortable, right, to what you guys are talking about. And here's another question: how long, depending on what this IPO looks like, let's say over the first 2 quarters, or maybe the first quarter, right? Because does Kraken or another exchange go public? And when I say that, the reason I shorten it up to the first quarter of this direct listing is because we're all timing a crypto bull run market too, right? So if somebody is going to decide to go public off this IPO, more or less, they're going to either say, hey, let's file the S1 now and rush to market to capture this bull run activity, or we're going to have to wait until this bull run cycle, or until the next bear cycle ends, and then do it. But what do you think Kraken's view of this? Do you think they're going to be watching this extremely close, or do you think they just have no intention of filing?
I think multiple exchanges are watching this extremely closely. There are a number of viable venues to go public. If you have Voyager trading publicly up north, you have eToro going public in a SPAC here in the US. And, you have venues like Kraken, like Bittrex, like even like an LMAX Digital, which are all regulated and compliant. And they hold themselves to a higher standard than, say, the KuCoins and the other exchanges of the world who shall remain nameless. I think, there is a standard there that certain segment of exchange has set in terms of regulation and rigor and transparency. And it's only a matter of time, based on how Coinbase does, that they go public. And even if Coinbase goes down, if they're able to make a significant amount of money and raise capital through the offering, I can't see why a Kraken wouldn't go public. Now's the time.
My last comment on this subject before we move on to our main line boxing event is, what do you guys think as far as if all of a sudden, to what Ryan said before, Coinbase's stock becomes a very correlated Bitcoin equity? Are you disappointed in seeing that?
No.
Okay, there it is. All right, folks. Yeah, Wednesday. Oh, go ahead, Ryan. Always with the last word. Jeez.
No. Before we hop into the next segment, I was going to ask CJ if he could do a quick run through on the ETH chart and how it's performed recently.
Yeah, absolutely. ETH
yeah.
and
You're just teeing this up for the boxing match that you're about to unleash. That's all. I see what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
Well, listen. We might as well break it in here, because I'm going to ask for an overlay now that he has the chart up. But what Ryan's bringing to the ring today is Ethereum versus BNB and a possible flipping. Ryan, I'm going to let you take it from here, but CJ, when we get to a certain point, I want to see this BNB overlay on Ethereum. Ryan, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Sure. So right now, when you're comparing BNB versus ETH, the market caps aren't really close, right? ETH's market cap is 246.5 billion. BNB is at about 87.5 billion. But BNB's price and market cap are growing at a rate about 5 times faster than ETH just since this January. If this continues, along with sentiment scores being much higher week over week, it's only a matter of time until BNB flippins ETH. At least it feels that way, right? I mean, especially when you have Pancake Swap actually has more total value locked on it than Uniswap, 8 billion versus 6 billion. Shout out to Nick Mancini, our community manager, for providing me with some of these statistics. But I think what we're seeing here could be a monumental shift in how the crypto markets operate. And my dog apparently agrees. That's why my door opened. But you also have fees on BSC, 35 times cheaper than ETH right now. So you have this hockey stick growth on BNB and on BSC based protocols. You have significantly cheaper fees. And at this rate, I mean, within the next 2 to 4 months, they could potentially flip. I'll leave it there. I'll let CJ get into some analysis here, and then I have some more to share on this.
Very, very interesting. It's just unprecedented how Binance Chain has grown and how it's gotten projects to migrate from Ethereum onto the Binance Chain, and projects like, PancakeSwap and a lot of these others, solely due to the gas fees that Ryan mentioned. Now, is an increase like that sustainable, especially when Binance Chain is not really valuing things like decentralization? They're more prioritized on minimizing those fees with some aspects of centralization in them. And so I think in the long term, Ethereum is where the people who prioritize decentralization will go and will build. But the people who are more interested in creating profitability for their projects in the short term will likely go on to Binance Chain because of the lower fees, the attraction, and the absolute just explosion in price in Binance Coin. But overall, will they flip? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. Like this kind of reminds me of this discussion about when XRP was going to flip Bitcoin in 2017 due to the volume all around Asia and the United States of America. And it's tremendous. It's growing fast. I'm incredibly impressed by what CZ has been able to do, and the team at Binance, and how they've basically replicated a centralized version of Ethereum to take a lot of important projects from Ethereum. But in the long term, if developers truly prioritize decentralization and can get the gas fees lower and under control on Ethereum, which I do believe they will in time, then Ethereum will likely still be the winner. But I mean, Binance Chain is giving it a run for its money. I know Ryan's holding his tongue here, so I'll let him.
Well, hold on. I want to interrupt before Ryan takes the second half of this case real quick. I don't know. I'm not so certain that, if there's a toppling of sorts of Ethereum by BNB, that Ethereum, the right word is to say, or the right phrase to say, Ethereum will be back on top with all the projects and stuff like that. I actually am getting a glimmer of coexistence of both of them, as well as some others. I mean, I'll tell you right now, my prediction of the future is ending these battles of gas fees, or any sort of transaction fees, and having coins that all the coins be able to flip-flop between chains, okay? Between chains, between parachains. If a gas fee is too much for XYZ coin on Ethereum, guess what? XYZ coin, you'll trade it on BSC. If it's too expensive on BSC, or you prefer to use Solana, use Solana for the same coin. That's how I see it. I am predicting a coexistence of chains moving forward.
So a Coke versus Pepsi, right? Like, you have the choice of a new generation when we were kids. God, that dates me. And then you have like old stodgy Coke. Another thing worth considering, the 3 leading DeFi platforms on ETH, Compound Maker and Aave, right? They have 10 billion, 8 billion, and 5.5 billion total value locked respectively. Venus, which it couldn't possibly have been around for more than a couple months, already has 9 billion on Binance Chain. So if someone else launches a DeFi product on Binance Chain, it wouldn't be surprising to see that grow exponentially as well, right? So all of these platforms, all of these projects that are on the BSC platform are growing at such a faster rate than ETH, and it probably has to do with gas fees. So until Loopring or ZK rollups or all of the other solutions that are out there and they're being built and implemented until they're fully embraced and until Vitalik can roll out, what is it, Ethereum 2.0, and all the delays behind that, being first mover doesn't necessarily guarantee your spot in the market. Apple had a desktop computer with a usable graphical interface long before Windows, and look what Microsoft did to them, blew them out of the water. So because they had better
Is that what you're
distribution.
saying? Is that what you're saying, Cardano? A name I didn't hear you just mention at all?
Absolutely not. No, I think that Binance Chain could be the Microsoft to Ethereum's Apple. And I'm still in the camp of being an ETH maxi. I still think ETH long term will probably be bigger than Binance Chain. But I think there is a window of opportunity here for Binance Chain and for CZ to potentially steal that top spot from Ethereum. And if Ethereum doesn't react quickly, they could potentially lose the market share they've built in.
Here's a question. Is Ethereum losing market cap directly to BNB, or are they just growing faster than one another?
One's growing faster than the other because ETH is up over 2,000 right now. I mean, it's not performing badly. It's outperforming Bitcoin on the year, but it's not outperforming Binance Chain. And if I were working on the Ethereum blockchain and seeing all of the projects and all of the growth over there and seeing how PancakeSwap has just eaten Uniswap's lunch, I'd be concerned.
Let me ask you this. I'm gonna throw a little wrench into this whole machine right here. I read I sat down catching up on some articles, and I was reading a Vanity Fair article this past weekend on Arthur Hayes. It'd come out about, I think it was about 6-8 weeks ago, but I hadn't gotten around to it. And it was interesting because it had to do with, the CFTC, the US regulators, indictments and stuff like that. But what it did mention, which is interesting, and some folks may know this or some folks may not, is that there is open intrigue by the US government into Binance. So let's say that the government moves forward with some sort of action against Binance. Not that that's going to happen. Okay, just read this in an article that there was talk about it.
I'm not. I don't want to touch it. The 40-foot pole. CZ likes to litigate. I'm good.
Let's say that there was an action against one of these parties, right? What would that do to what we're talking about now? And listen, it could happen. I don't give a crap. It could be something against Ethereum. It could be something against Binance. It could be something against Tomato Coin, for all I care. How does that affect what you're saying if it does happen? Does that shut that whole ecosystem down?
So Ethereum, it's been called not a security already. And there's been some speculation that maybe regulators could change their mind on that. So they're not getting any action against them.
That was CYA. That was CYAing against your comment with Binance.
No, absolutely not.
I don't want to forget regulation. I'm just saying if there was something to happen.
Sure. So
would
Binance,
that kill an ecosystem?
Alex, Binance doesn't need the US to be successful. They've proven that already. They don't care about the US. Having a presence in the US is one thing, but CZ does not care about the US. And if the US regulators take action against them, they just cease all operations and move on. It's such a small sliver of their population, their customer segment, that they do not care. Another stat worth considering. Last week, BSC had 5 million daily transactions. That's 4 times what Ethereum has right now. Come on, man, 4 times, right? If you have more transactions and more value locked up, eventually people are going to start shouting at the likes of a Coinbase or a Kraken or other exchanges to start listing Binance chain-based products, right? Because that's the main thing holding it back is distribution, despite Binance having massive distribution. If they start being able to leverage the distribution of a Voyager, of a Coinbase, of a Kraken, of a Swissborg, where you have these projects listed across all of these venues, I mean, sky's the limit.
And that's from an ETH maxi, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. I was wrong about NFTs, but I am not wrong about ETH.
Wait, we don't know you were wrong about NFTs yet.
Maybe in the short term.
All right. Anybody have any closing arguments in this case?
Just a huge thank you to Nick Mancini once again for providing this research to us. It's
Nick Mancini,
very insightful. Very insightful.
our Chief Community Officer at
Yes,
TradeTheChain.com. Insightful guy he is.
indeed. CJ had something to say before I rudely cut him off. So,
Oh, CJ, you got
that's all
more? By the
I
way,
was-
CJ, you have a nice haircut. I just wanted to say that on the air.
yeah, looking good, man. Sharp.
Looking good.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna echo Alex's mantra of having a poly chain or a poly coin world going into the future, because these projects or these tokens have trade-offs. You know, you have certain things that are beneficial in Ethereum and vice versa. The same is true in Binance chain. So it just depends on the priorities of the developers and whether they prioritize decentralization or low gas fees. And I think over time, we're going to see how that plays out. But I do see a world where both of those can coexist. I remember a lot of people were like, oh, Bitcoin and Ethereum can't coexist, or Bitcoin and fiat can't coexist. Well, I mean, they're coexisting fine right now. And I think it's going to continue to be that way in the future.
I think ultimately what will determine this is what works better. People want low fees, fast transactions, and something that just works. And if it just works on a centralized blockchain like Binance chain, that's what the mass retail audience is going to use, because ultimately that's all they care about. They don't care about what's under the hood. They just care about getting from point A to point B, right? And if that somehow works on Ethereum, then they'll do that on Ethereum. But they just want something that works. They don't really care about. This is like VHS versus Betamax, or Blu-ray versus HD DVD. No one cares. We're the only ones who care about this. Maybe a few thousand people in the world care about it. Billions care about something they just turn on, plug in, and it works. That's it.
All right. With that being said, I think this week we have a new Trinity trading episode we're doing, CJ. There were some rumblings from Rob over Digital Asset News and that, so we'll check that out. And then see, that's really about it. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, if you like what you see or hear, or you like us in the least little bit, hit subscribe and the like button. Check out marketrebellion.com/crypto, tradethechain.com, and hang on to your handlebars. We will see you again tomorrow. Thanks, folks.
Bye, everyone.